Right. Welcome everybody to our 11th Gardeners and Growers Workshop for May the 14th. And as usual, I'll just go through the options of enrolling as a private student with the foundation, gaining access to valuable information in the 2015 teachings, as well as listening to the current teachings. And then the three books that are essentially the textbooks that we all need to have sooner or later. Right, today I'm going to, the last time we spoke about the fields, and I could see that quite a few were confused and not quite understanding. So I've decided to introduce a vertical friend who can come along and help us to better understand these fields, and then a bit of a feedback on our spinning of our reactors. And I'll hope that Klaus might join us on it today as well, because he can also give some more insight into what he's given us, the information on these reactors. All right, so first of all, I want to introduce you to a very majestic being that's been in our town for quite some time, and it's this beautiful tree. And I tried to look up to see what type of tree. Ross, you might have some insight into what type of tree it is.
It looks to me like a Moreton Bay fig, but I'm not sure.
I thought it was a fig tree, yeah, but I wasn't too sure myself.
They call them here Moreton Bay figs, but I'm not too sure actually.
Okay. So this is my friend that I want to introduce. It's a massive tree. It's probably one of the biggest trees in the town. And you can see as the size against the little beetle car there, it's a huge tree. So I'm going to use this friend to explain a bit about the fields and ask some questions concerning them. So when we look at this beautiful creature has been living in our town, and I'm sure there's many of these majestic trees in everybody's town and all over the world. And we all walk by and drive past them every day without giving them really a second thought about who they are. And I'm sure this tree, she's older than any of us that is probably alive today. And so one can imagine what she's experienced in watching the town grow and the people come and go, and the wonderful stories that she might be able to tell us of what she's seen by living in this town with everybody around her. But I'm going to use her as an example of the statement that I'm going to make, is that we are told that plants get all their food from the soil. And so we have to think about that statement, particularly in relation to this tree, because if this tree's been around for 100 years and its root systems is probably very well developed within the soil structure there, but you would think that even after 20 years, its root system would have used up all the nutrition within the soil around its root structure. As you can see, half the root structure is paved over with a driveway, with a road, and it's probably never had a touch of fertilizer in its life. It's probably never been given any extra water in its life. So when we look at that statement again, that plants only get their food from soil, you have to question that now, because how can they only get their food from the soil? It would have used up all the nutrition in that soil over the years. And so this leads on to sort of ask us the question as to how else is the tree able to grow, and how else is the tree able to nourish itself and keep on growing? Where is is she getting her nutrients from? Where is she getting her energy from? How can she grow to such a size without any inputs from our current understanding of agriculture in terms of fertilizers and everything to make things grow? So essentially, the vertical people are obtaining the majority of the nutritional needs from the fields all around us. The needs of this old tree will be very different from the needs of a quick growing crop or carrot. So, this tree in growing knows it's going to grow for 50, 100 years, and so will grow accordingly. Whereas a lettuce or a carrot has a very short time span in its life. And so the needs of the two different types of plants will be very different. And we know that lettuce and our short-term crops do need a lot of nutrition and input to really get them to grow. Whereas the trees, because they live longer, they're able to manage that very differently. And so when you look at that red area, which is a huge, huge area, you're looking at every leaf and every branch is interacting with the field. So it becomes a huge reactor. And if one had to actually take all those leaves and try and measure the actual surface area between all the leaves and all the branches, it would end up being a huge surface area that is interacting with the fields all around us. So the other question that we have to ask is, what is all these fields? That's been some of the questions that we have received from some of the people listening is, what are these fields that we always talk about? So these fields, or in other ways, magnetic rays or the rays of the light, it's just different ways that we can express the same thing. These fields are created from our sun, given off from our sun. We also get the fields that are given off from the Earth, because the Earth itself is a plasma. We also get different types of fields coming in from the center of the galaxy and the center of our universe. All these different fields and billions of different strengths of fields are interacting with our planet every day and all the time. And these fields are essentially the elementary particles that make up everything that exists in our universe, because everything comes from these fields. Everything's created from these fields and everything interacts with these fields. So we are all living in a soup of fields, and at the end of the day, when we die, we just go back to the fields. And so this is what the plants and a lot of us and all of us are living off and living in is just this mass of different fields. And when you look at what these fields are, is essentially they have both magnetical and gravitational fields. And as we explained last time, it looks like a cross-section of our paint pen that we've made, or cut a piece out of your maggrav that you've made. So you have your central, which is your principal matter, your transition matter. Hello? And your... Is there a question there?
No. He just coughed.
Okay. No problem. All right, so that's what the field consists of, is what it's made of. We just don't see it. We see some of these fields as the light that we experience during the day, but the majority of the other fields we just don't see, and so it's very difficult for us to imagine that they are there. We've learned a lot about the spherical plasma, and this elongated plasma is the same as the spherical plasma. It's in motion, and so this is the fields, and these are the rays of light. And as it showed last time, if we have a plasma of hydrogen, we could also have a hydrogen plasma as a field, but it would exhibit the same magnetical and gravitational fields as a hydrogen plasma, but just in a different form. And these are what is interacting with us and everything around us on a daily basis. So I hope that from a different perspective, with the help of our friend, that maybe we've got a better understanding of what we are living in. Any questions around that?
Yes, please, Jimmy. Recently, the Earth's resonance has increased significantly. Do you think, or you know, that that would have some sort of influence on plants growing as well?
I think it does. I think it's probably influencing us and the plants and everything. In what way, I don't know. But I think from a human perspective, I think that's what's making a lot of the planet a bit crazy at the moment, and putting people a lot on edge. But so I'm not too sure myself, but maybe I see Klaus has joined us, and I think he's worked with this his whole life, so he might be able to give better insight to us. Klaus, can you tell us something about that?
Sorry, but I haven't understood the question. Can you repeat?
Do you want me to repeat it? The Schoenberg resonance of the Earth has increased significantly. I'm at many multiples of, usually it is about 8,000 hertz, but it's increased to, well, 120 at times, but it's much higher generally. That's a peak at 120, but it's much higher. And I was thinking it maybe has an effect on plant growth as well as humans. Sorry, did you get the question?
So I have to bring the computer to another place. I hear not so clear.
Any other questions while we wait for Klaus there?
I have a question. Eric from Denmark.
Hello, Eric.
Hi. I wonder, the Schumann resonance, it was ordinarily about, it was 7, near 8 hertz before, and now the number of 120 is mentioned. Is it beneficial to have a higher frequency in this case, or is it bad that it is not the same as it used to be? Any opinion on that? Thank you.
Yeah, I personally have no experience with the resonance Schumann's frequency, so I couldn't actually say. I just think it is changing the environment on Earth, and obviously with everything that's living on it. As I said, in what way, I don't know, but we are all being affected by it in some way.
Jimmy, just one thing also, they say it's a resonance, but in pure terms, it's possibly a field, some sort of field activity around the Earth.
Yes, it is. We call it frequency, but it's probably a magnetic field, and it's probably due to, if one looks at it, one sees the changes in all the other planets in our solar system. They've shown in pictures of all these changes happening, and if there's changes happening on other planets, there has to be changes happening here as well. And it's this interaction between the sun and the earth that is probably changing, which is causing this change. So that means the sun is changing, the earth changing. And is it a case of the two plasmas, having extra energy coming in, extra fields coming in, so they're having to reposition, and so we've got to try and look at it from a plasma point of view. But
I think you're pretty accurate there. I think as I understand it, it is coming from the sun. The modification of the field strengths.
Yes, everything, all the magnetic fields are are coming from, that create our solar system, comes from the sun. So whatever the sun does affects everything. And I mean, we've known over the last sort of 20, 30 years, we grew up with a very orange, sort of almost yellow sun, whereas now it's a very white sun. So the sun has changed. And if the sun has changed, then everything else changes. Klaas, are you in a better spot?
So now I have my headphones on and I can hear you clearly. Yes, from my perspective, the interaction of the fields is not only one sun, the sun behind the sun, the central sun. There are many suns, and the transformation line, the transition line is that transforms these fields to different strings, different ranges of the strings. And so we get, as you mentioned, with the transmutation of the elements, this is the right way. We see that the magnetic fields or the macro fields come from all different planets, all different suns, and we interact at every level. And so the different elements would be created by the what was hydrogen.
The principal hydrogen.
Yes. And from this element, all the other stuff would be created.
The actual Schumann's frequency, Klaas, have you had any knowledge on that?
Yes, the Schumann frequency is not always on the same level of 7.8. We see that it comes higher to 12 to 13 hertz. And this all changes the whole life of the planet. While we get in resonance with, what is the correct word? It's a little magnetic particles in our brain. Magneto, I don't know the right word. It's little magnetical stuff. And also the animals and the plants has it in.
I think I know what you're talking of. I can't think of that word. Yes.
I have to look at the other computer. A friend of me is a physicist. He measured these things, and
Yeah, because
they make research with turtles, and the turtles have a special sense in the nose. There are special cells in the nose.
Is it paramagnetic?
No, not paramagnetic. Just a moment.
While he's getting that, Jimmy, I'm quite interested in the way you actually portray that tree. It never struck me that the nutrient would have run out years ago for such a large tree, and it's obviously getting some assistance from the plasma fields to grow so big. We have a tree here, and as you know, the country is so dry. We've got a huge tree on our property, and there's no way it could get nutrition in the old sense. So it must be plasma fields. It's just logical.
Yeah, it is logical. I say, when you look at small, quick-grown crops, yes, obviously you need to give them nutrition because they have a very short life cycle. But trees, because they know they have a very long life cycle, they do probably things a lot slower, so they grow slower. But yes, that nutrition in the soil story just doesn't make sense when you're looking at trees and those type of plants, because then it's not like they can pull up root and go and walk another 50 meters down the road and then settle down again, because they've used up all their nutrition in that soil.
Yes, that's so. But in fact, they have a taproot which seeks water first thing, and most Australian trees anyway, which seeks water, but the nutrition just wouldn't be there.
No, no.
So I find the word. It's magnetit, also magnetite. These are little magnetic particles, and we all have this in the brain. And with these magnetites, we go in resonance with these spherics, with the Schumann resonance and other fields of the Earth and other fields of the Sun.
So that one could quote it as well when they play different sounds and frequencies and on a plate with when you see that's particles of sand and somatics, and they change the frequency and it changes the pattern.
Yes. You heard this was Mario mentioned with these different frequencies of the elements.
Yes.
He played last week, the week before, with this kind, with a sound. And when he played the different elements from Mr. Cohen, you see when the fourth element come into the sound, there comes a pattern. It's not then becomes it's become a different patterns. You have heard this?
Yes, I did hear it. Just to let everybody else know, Mario was explaining how the interaction between, so he took like amino acids, but in a sound, on a sound point of view. So he took the sound of carbon, and on its own, it's just a noise. But the minute you start putting, say, the sound of hydrogen, sound of oxygen, and sound of nitrogen together, even just two of them start setting up a pulse. And when you put all four, which make up the amino acid, it almost sounded like a heartbeat, Klaus? It was quite a rhythmical sound when you put them together.
Yes. And this pulsation we can find in all plants and in all living beings. And most technical pulsation, especially for the microwave, for the cell phones and the antennas, change the pulsation in all the human beings. And this is very difficult for us. And in the background, the fields from the sun and the fields from different planets and different sounds from the galaxy move in the last. It's changing. And so we think this is a changing in the whole evolution. That's what we see the last 20, 30 years or 40 years. There are many changes in these pulsations.
Yeah, I think these changes are sort of affecting people in different ways. I sort of explained that to a lot of people in the last 6 months, so from end of last year to especially now the whole of this year, is the universe seems to have thrown everybody's marbles up into the air that we're juggling, and we've got to decide what to let go and what to hold on to, and I think that it's this change in frequency that is affecting everybody in different ways. We just don't really understand it. Any other questions then on that first part? No, okay. I'm going to carry on. And I'm glad you joined us, Klaus, because now I'm going to talk about those spinning reactors that I've had going. And these are the reactors that we had got from a chap in China there. And they're a double core reactor, and in the middle you can either have a plastic ball or a beautiful little brass ball, and they spin up to about I think 11,000 12,000 RPM that you can adjust. And so these are lovely little reactors now that we can all start playing with. So this is what I had done, just to give you an overview of, I put together 3 reactors, A, B, and C. So those are my 3 orange dots. The green stripes are my grow beds. So I've got 5 of the aquaponics systems, and each one of those is about 8 meters long and 4 in a row. So that's where all my lettuce is grown. So I've positioned these 3 reactors as they are in working with Klaus, and we found the best spot for these reactors where they seem to be quite comfortable. And I put together some of the measurements there, so it's not exactly in a sort of a star formation. So we just thought we'd try and see how this one goes. I was in quite a hurry to get them up and running when we received the reactors. To see, so there was the picture of reactor B. And in that one, we've got a brass inner core. Reactor C. And then that was reactor A, where it's a plastic inner ball. So these are the 3 there. Okay, now I'd sent through these photographs through to Klaus and just asked him to give some idea on his impressions of them. And what he said, and maybe if you want to just chip in and add some extra information there, Klaus, but you said reactor A was very strong magnetic on a scale of 1 to 10, being 10. Reactor B was detoxifying effect in environment and strong field formation. And then the third reactor was sort of on a scale of 6. You want to add anything, Klaus, or shall I tell you what I put in them first? Hello, Klaus, are you with us? No, okay.
Klaus is there.
He's there, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what I put into the 3 balls. So my reactor A, which gave sort of a very strong magnetic, I'd used in a plastic core. So in that one, I'd filled CO2, zinc, C-GANs, some amino acids we had, magnesium GANs, the CO2 we'd made from potassium nitrate, and a bit of CH3. And in the outer core, I just put CH3 with 1 drop of the mixture from the inner core. I'd used in both of the cores, I'd use the actual GANs, a little bit of the actual GANs, and then with the rest being the liquid plasma. And so that one gave quite a strong magnetic. I was just trying to see, well, if I put everything in the center, that's sort of quite gravitational, and then on the outside being magnetical there. The reactor B with a brass core, we had put CO2 in the middle, and the outer core was CH3 with 1 drop of the CO2 gas in that outer core as well. And that was a detoxifying effect on the environment. So that was also quite an interesting comment there from Klaus for the detoxifying effect. And then the third reactor was essentially filled the same as A, but instead of using a plastic core ball, I had used the brass core, the copper core, and then filled it exactly the same way. And it was quite interesting that this only gave us 6, whereas the other one was a 10.
May I ask, how do you know? How do you know the strength? Is it from a ratio of GANs, or have you measured anything, or how do you determine the strength?
Klaus is able to. Can you join us there, Klaus? Just at the time. Klaus is able to. He's worked with the fields probably his whole life, and he's able to sense the fields, and he uses and see the fields. So even on a photograph, he's able to give an indication and of the strength in that. Klaus, are you there?
He's got his mic open, but
yeah, but he's not. Yeah, so he's able to sense the fields there, and he then just uses that pendulum method, and he's able to determine through that what sort of strength levels and what it's doing. And it's just that pendulum he uses essentially just connecting, is a way of connecting to your inner soul and getting that information. This is what he's able to show and tell us with people. So at this stage, it's the only sort of measurement tool that we have. We've tried ourselves with the pendulum method, and we're able to tell. We've had different reactors, and some of them are giving us a magnetical field when we hold it over the spinning reactors, and then some are giving a magnetical field. Gravitational. Gravitational and magnetical field.
So your pendulum does swing in different ways to indicate different types of fields. And then Klaus uses a 1, 2, 3 up to 10 type of a scale. You can use any type of scale you want to measure the strength of the actual field. So he's also had a good look at Rodrigo's health unit, for example, and explained to him what shape of the fields he sees, what he sees with the photos when somebody's body, their aura melds with the fields of the tubes, for example. So this is all quite helpful at this stage without having concrete cameras or things that can show us the fields at the moment.
Are you using a CO2 GANs pendulum, by the way, Lisa?
That's what I have been using, both one of Klaus's basalt pendulums and a GANs pendulum, and they both give me the same type of response. But Klaus just uses his basalt pendulum, which he's used for years. So, yeah, I think you can get the same effect from the GANs pendulum.
Thank you. And the other question is, do they supply the cores, the plastic and the brass cores, or are they an addition?
Everything comes as a set. We were overly surprised at what we had got and the detail that had gone into those reactors. because that's been sort of the block for a lot of people is to really start working with these reactors. I've tried myself and I just couldn't get anything to spin properly. Yeah. And the engineering that's gone into those cores is very incredible, and the design that Mr. Chen had designed them with Harman, so they are going to be quite useful for a lot of people just to start playing with and then start understanding.
See, Armin had a hand in the design, did he?
Yes.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Just one other thing. When you use these reactors, hang on, I've lost the train of thought here. I'm trying to read something as well. I'll leave it just for now. Sorry.
You know what? This is just early days because I've connected them up to 12-volt solar batteries.
There we go. Klaus is promoting to panelist on a different computer here.
Okay.
Okay, so promoted his other self, so hopefully we can get some.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yes, we can hear you, Klaus. Okay.
We have troubles with the internet. We have, there are coming a little rain, and there's the problems with the internet.
We have the same problem. Little rain and no internet.
Yes. Can I go back to the reactors for a time?
The pictures there, Klaus, do you want to go back to them?
Yes, please.
So there's your first one.
Hang on, it's not coming
Oh,
up.
okay. Yeah, it's on B.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the first reactor standing on a point, we called them, is a resonance point to the Earth glands, to minerals, to deep water, to deep rocks, to crude oil, to gas, to these things. We call them the Earth glands. And this reactor stands exactly on this point, and the interaction between the reactor and the field of the Earth is different to the other reactors. So this reactor is the strongest. This is a B. B is I think the detoxifying reactor. You can hear me?
Yes, we can. You hear you, Klaus?
Okay.
Yeah.
D. Okay, this is the A.
So that was here. That was B. Yes. Then we had the C.
Okay.
Can't click too fast.
Sorry.
D. I see the field is a young point. It's an energy point who brings the energy from the outside to the inner side. It's like the implosion.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. From out to in. Yes.
And that one's not so strong. Is that it? I'm not sure.
And then there's A.
And the interaction is not so strong like the A. This is the okay. This is the A. And this I see is a planetary force. It's called a planetary force ground point, and it brings the field to a higher level. It's the interaction between all the planets, all the stars in the solar system, with our Earth grid. And this, you can bring the energy from the reactor in a new level.
So this point that we had found on the Earth, then that's sort of an ideal spot to use for these type of reactors then, to
Yes.
enhance their fields?
It's a very good point. It's the planetary force point. And this brings the magnetic field, when our builds up, this point makes it very strong.
Okay.
Well, I used the pendulum class to ask them where they wanted to go, and this is where they showed me. So I put them where they wanted to go.
We have nothing to think, we have only to go, and where is the best resonance. And then we became a special interaction. Very good work.
We're just students of yours, thank you.
Would there be a method to make that number 6 stronger in some way, or should it be okay the way it is? Do they need to be more, I'm going to say, more balanced?
They work very good together, and they build up the fields in the next weeks. They will become stronger and stronger from week to week.
The only concern that I have is, because I've got them running on 12-volt battery, solar battery, is that I'm not able to keep them at a certain RPM all the time. So, you know, as the battery runs down from week to over a week, then to me the speeds of the different reactors would be changing, and this would be causing that different interactions all the time because of the speeds.
Yes, I think this is good, that not only a regular speed, so you have also a little bit of pulsation in the fields.
Oh, because of the speed difference between each one.
Yes.
Would give you that pulse.
For sure.
Oh,
May
okay.
I ask a question?
Yes.
Mr. Kess has, and I don't know if it relates to this context, but regarding other use of the reactors, Mr. Kess said that the speed of the course was irrelevant, and that confuses me a lot. And I also heard that the electronics near to the reactors are disturbing the fields. Because as I see this, it is an AC motor, right? With a little speed controller.
It's DC, I think.
Running it off a 12-volt battery.
Yeah, it just runs off 12 volts.
How many wires goes to the motor?
There's 4 because it's speed control. So I'd imagine that there's the 4 wires to be able to do the speed control, and you can also reverse polarity on the motors. So you can have one spinning clockwise, and you can have another one spinning anti-clockwise.
By twisting the wires, or?
No, there's a little switch on the control panel that you can just switch, and then it reverses rotation.
Okay. What was the cost of these reactors?
They are $60 US. Yes. So, and then plus shipping. So, but,
okay.
It's nice. Instead of going for a cup of coffee and a meal, it's nice toys to buy, because you know, we bought a couple and now we've bought a whole lot more. So we've got 1 or 2 spinning in the house all the time. So great to play with.
Show Klaus the...
Klaus, you've had a look at the mixtures there. That's what I've put into each reactor.
What I feel is the mixture is very balanced for your fields.
Is there anything we're missing for plants?
we played yesterday with moringa and guns from a rose, and have very interesting results in reaction by bacteria and fungi.
Oh, okay.
What I see, what we play the next time is with this moringa GANs with different other GANSes. This moringa also many minerals and many other things in it, and micro elements, and I think it can be good to add this to the sea GANs.
Yes, my next thinking I was going to do is to do the actual GANs of our lettuce seeds. So all the different varieties that we are growing, is I'll take those seeds and make a GANs of them, and then use that GANs in these reactors, because I'm giving them exactly what they're needing in the match.
Very good idea.
Mm-hmm.
We would want to put that fourth reactor in there. So do you think it's a good idea to add a fourth reactor at a fourth point like a pyramid, or should we actually raise the fourth one, Klaus, to create the star formation?
Must be not the star formation, but the fourth reactor would be great when it comes to field from the outside. You remember the work with Armin makes this with the 124, 28 Teslas. He had also a fourth reactor by side from the star formation.
Okay. Are you able to?
Please
go ahead.
You find the exactly point. It's very easy to find. Where's the best way?
Yeah, we'll go walk around, do a walkabout again. Are you able to detect what sort of interaction we might be getting between the three at this stage?
Yes, I can look. Okay, no problem. It comes to a field integration. We call them field integration. It's like the magnetic grid on the Earth has the same work as integrating factor. And what you make with these reactors, you bring a very good field to for the integration of different fields from the environment, from the Earth, and also from the atmospheric fields.
So beneficial.
Very good. It's very balanced and very good field.
Okay. It wasn't bad for potluck first time round, eh?
Watch the lettuce take off now.
Well, that's the interesting one. I'll go to our observations, because a lot of it, it's difficult for us to really tell the changes, because we've had them going for about 6 weeks. The one problem I did have is, in my excitement, I didn't nanocoat anything, so I'm busy nanocoating some others, so I can nanocoat the center ball and the outer ball, and then we'll try it again. There's no obvious changes. You know, it's not like the lettuce is now gone to 5 feet tall, anything like that. But we have noticed that everything is growing very, very well. And we don't know whether it's from the reactors or whether because at the same time we've had the seasonal change into autumn, which is obviously a great time to grow our lettuce. So, you know, instinctively, I think I know that they are making an effect on our lettuces, but it's not something that I can scientifically prove. It's just sort of a sense that I am getting that our plants are benefiting from it.
I'm thinking, Jimmy, it may be a nutritional enhancement. And then
well, that's what. Yes, that's what my intention was. That's why on the 2 of the reactors I filled in the inner balls with as much a lot of different variety of organisms that we could, because it was I suppose my intention, and then is to use these reactors and to create the fields that will feed the plants what they need. And as I said, I know we've seen changes compared to previous years that we've grown, but it's not something that I can easily scientifically show and compare against. So it becomes very difficult to say anything definite. But
well, I believe the nutritional enhancement occurs in my tomatoes. I've not tasted tomatoes quite like the ones, maybe it could be put down to my imagination, but I've eaten a lot of tomatoes in my existence on the planet. These taste particularly good, and I've got them not in this plasma field that you have, but in the the balls, etc.
Yeah, that's what we've noticed since we started using the plasma, is the taste in everything is very distinctive. Even in our different variety of lettuces, you can taste each variety and each one is different. Whereas generally you get a bowl of lettuce, they all taste the same. Whereas we can taste that each one is different. And that only just getting it because of that access to the field, access to the minerals in that. So
now our tomatoes are now second generation plasma tomatoes, because these seedlings came from seeds from previous plasma tomatoes, and they are definitely giving us much larger fruit. So
I hope Jimmy's a bit bigger than 5 foot. They look like they're 2 metres high.
Well, I'm 1.8 foot.
1.8
That's not bad.
Oh, not 1.8 foot, yeah, no, that's a bit,
1.8 meters.
that's a bit small, yes. 1.8 meters, that's my height.
Thought it was needed.
And the fence line that we hold them up is only to my shoulder. And so these are just growing
straight up.
I've got the same problem. I have to extend my supports. I've had to put in new supports because they're keep growing higher and higher.
Yeah.
And we haven't. I've just left them, and they're supporting each other and going straight up. So I'm just leaving them like that.
They look spectacular.
Now we've also placed, we haven't shown photographs, but we've placed 2 just our static double core balls in an outer ball, and we've got placed 2 around the tomato plants as well. So it's going to be nice to see, because these are fully grown and they are just full of tomatoes, which are still ripening. And so it'll be interesting to see how this goes through wintertime with our reactors. So it'll be a nice one to
I got a test coming up. We're going to drop to near 0 for tomatoes, and normally tomato plants can't handle that sort of temperature. They wilt and die off, but I'll soon find out how they stand up, because we're due for some pretty cold weather. It's turning cold already.
Yeah, so it's all these sort of observations, and say, even if it is our imagination,
I don't think so.
Don't think so. We instinctively know, and so it's nice to be able to record these, because if other people start getting similar results, then we know that's the effect.
Did you put the others in? Yeah.
Klaus, are you able to, with these pictures of the tomatoes, are you able to sense what the field interaction is with these plants?
Yes, I see it. And what I can tell you is the whole water structure is changed. All the fruits are in a very healthy state, and we call them health water. healing water. The structure is very high. The structure is from the water, the power in the water is nearly 16,000 bovies. And normal, we swing between 6,500 to 11,000. All what is higher, 12 to 13,000, we call them healing water. And in these tomatoes, the water structure is very fine. I think it's in your whole area, the water structure is changed. The reactors have a field, a dome structure, nearly 700 meters now.
700 meters, okay. I must warn my neighbors then.
But they're going to get a surprise when they see things grow.
I'd love to make my neighbours happy. We haven't got very happy, cheerful neighbours, so I'd love to make them happy.
That's if they believe what's happening. That confirms what Klaus just said, Jimmy, is what we were just discussing. The nutritional value of in a plasma field increases significantly.
Yes.
I'll have to bring some lettuces for Klaus to look at.
So I can sell these tomatoes as little healing tomatoes.
Yes. Make different persons, and you see they become stronger.
When after they've eaten them.
You give them in the hand or
On the
let them
hand,
eat.
yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm going to start giving these away to every single person I see now, and.
Well, we're eating a lot of them, so
yes.
good for us.
I also this effect what you told us that you're in the winter time. Now, you said the Australians don't not eat so much salad, and the last time you have no problem with this, and people.
Yes.
The people would be infected from this and bring this with home. They doesn't know what it is in her consciousness and not consciousness. They feel this.
Yeah, that's what I always thought. You know, when I started with the plasma and we noticed that effect last winter, where people were buying our stuff even though it was winter time. And my reaction was the same as what you've just said, is that subconsciously, or the conscious mind, when they're walking past our stuff in the shop, almost tells them, this is good for you, you need to buy it, you need to eat it. And so they do. Yeah. Go ahead, Klaus.
Yes, I feel the same as you said.
What you got next?
Any
Other
questions on this at this stage, or discussion?
Just one question, a quick one, Jimmy. You have your reactors spinning all the time, 24 hours, 7 days a week?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions there?
May I ask about we have talked about this young 100% farmer program in Denmark, and
yes, Eric.
And what I would like is if you could give me 3 to 5 easy applicable advice for this guy, so he could use it, and I could select something, but you have the experience, and so it would be better, because I don't think I get more than one try. Either he accepts it or he rejects it. So if
Yes.
I can have success with this, we can get in television with the technology. There's a chance if it's not stopped by anyone.
My best advice, Eric, is for him to, if you give him a little bit of CO2 GANs, is take some of that water and let him soak some of his seeds, even if it's just for an hour, into the liquid plasma water of the CO2, and then plant those seeds. And then just water those particular plants with the CO2 water, and just let him do that to start with. And then just because, experienced farmers like that and any farmers know their history of how things grow. And so they'll be able to tell very quickly that these particular plants are growing differently or producing differently. So let him try on a different variety and just use that method to start with.
Yes.
The only other thing I can suggest is, because you are in a place that is by the sea, you can easily show him how to create sea GANs. And the sea GANs is hugely effective in growing things very strongly and has a huge effect on plants.
But how do I apply the sea GANs? Put it in a bottle like you have shown on the presentation, or should we water with plasma water with sea GANs in it, or whatever?
You can actually use the GANs, the water and some of the GANs, and water it into the soil, because the sea GANs has all the minerals, and if you water it into the soil, it literally will feed the plant for the whole season. The GANs part, not just water.
Okay, so you want it's like if you have a bottle or a tank and you have a bit of GANs in it and you stir it and then you water with it. So there will be a little bit of GANs that keeps up the strength so it doesn't decay the strength.
Yes.
We find about a 5% dilution is good.
So 5%, how do you measure that?
Well, yeah, say 5 mils per liter.
Not even, just a small amount of the GANs in a liter of water. So it could just be 3 or 4 drops of a syringe, because then you've got some GANs in that water.
If I have a bottle and the bottle has maybe 1 millimeter at the bottom with GANs in it, and the rest of the bottle is water. If I stir this bottle and take a few drops to a liter of water, which I use for irrigation or spreading on the ground, is that the way to do it?
Yes, you can do that, because even though, when you stir it up, even though the water you might take off, it looks clear, you're still getting a huge amount of tiny nanoparticles of the CO2, which you don't see, but it is there in the water.
The only thing with that is, if it's small amounts like that, it needs to be applied quite often. Whereas if you actually take some of the GANs and work it into the soil, for example, then you wouldn't have to water and water again with the GANs water type of thing.
Okay, the seawater GANs, how do I make that? I saw once that you had some seawater and put some caustic in it and then it gets white. I've done that and made something. But is that the GANs, or should it be applied in a bath, CO2 bath, because there has been some discussion about this, if it's actually GANs or just nanoparticles?
It is GANs, because it has the salt water from the sea, and to create GANs you need the salt, which is your Na.
Well, essentially, when you're looking at seawater, you take a glass of seawater and it looks clear, but it's got all the it's got 98 whatever minerals in there, but all in a nanoparticle state. That's why you don't see it. And then what you're doing by adding the caustic into it is you're providing the additional oxygen. So all those nanoparticles with sort of big turn and puff out become the GANs. And so you'll get your calcium oxide, magnesium oxide, and so you get all your minerals that come out in that GANs from the seawater. It's just not used in health application is because you don't really know what you've got, and every part of the ocean will be slightly different than any other part. So that's why it's not really recommended from a health, from body point of view, is because you really don't know what you are dealing with. So, but from an agricultural point of view, it doesn't really matter, and it really works well.
So should you tell Eric that he needs a pH meter, or does he not need that meter?
Well,
yes. When you make it, you try and what we've experienced in a lot of people that make it is you never go above sort of 10.5 on your pH. When you're adding your caustic into the seawater, never go above 10.5, because the higher you go, the more of the heavier elements that you are precipitating out into as the GANs, and you don't really want a lot of the heavier metals. So you just keep it at 10.5 pH.
Okay, so I use my pH meter and mix in some natrium hydroxide and
yes.
and see what happens. And when I reach about 10, I stop.
Yes, get to 10.5 and then you just stop. What I'm finding that you can do extra is I'm actually putting a little bubbler on. So I've got a little air pump with a little air stone, and I'm finding that I'm creating, because I'm adding oxygen into the seawater, I'm creating a bit more of the sea GANs than normal circumstances. So you get a better yield.
That makes a lot more GANs, actually, Jimmy, I find, putting a bubbler on it.
Yes.
Okay. A simple way to apply this, could it be, we are taught that water is the media for the fields. So if in Denmark we have regular rain, we don't have dry soils here. We always have moisture in the soil. So what about having a bottle and put it into the earth somewhere? Then the fields should spread from the bottle, right?
Yes, that's another way as well. You can, create little bottles and bury them in the fields. And if you bury them on certain earth points, and Klaus can come in and explain that as well, then those earth energies will magnify those fields and enhance those fields on certain points. So you're working in harmony with Earth's fields.
Yes, I think
Klaus,
that would be a
add on that one?
good idea.
Yes, the same way. I took 4 bottles and bring it in the corners of our garden, and we also have every time many of moisture in the ground, and so I prefer to make this for building up the fields and bring a new condition in the garden, and it works good.
Okay. A question about the seawater GANs. When I have made the GANs, I have this pH value of 10.5. For how long should it be standing there before I wash it?
I let mine go for at least 24 hours to even 48 hours, and then I wash. What I'm finding is when I didn't use any oxygenation, then the water still had quite a caustic feel to it, and it was quite soapy. And what I'm finding now is by bubbling it and leaving it bubbling for at least 2 days, it's all gone. And that water is just essentially salt, and there's no caustic in that water at all. because that caustic has broken down into the different components.
Okay, but you still have to wash it. In that.
Yes, you still have to wash it, otherwise it's too salty for the plants. So I wash it about 3 times.
3 times. Do you use distilled water or regular water?
No, because it's agriculture, I just use normal. We on rainwater, so it's better than town water.
Yeah. Okay, that is good information. And in another context, you said that you should soak the seeds for 2 to 4 hours. Now you said 1 hour. What is recommended?
It just depends. It just depends. You're going to, I've done experiments where I've soaked seeds for, 1 or 2 hours. Because when we do our micro radish, we soak our seeds in the liquid plasma water, CH3. And sometimes we've just soaked them for 5 hours. And then sometimes we've actually soaked them for 24 hours. And we seem to get the same effect.
But they aren't growing big. We're only growing babies. So we haven't grown them out to seed again. So it might change them when they seed and create their flowering. So, we haven't really found the difference in the time soaking. You're only going to find that if you start creating generations of plasma plants. So if you're going to grow some corn and soak for a certain time, then see if maybe the genetic modification disappears if you try seed it again, that type of thing. So we haven't quite gotten multi-generational yet.
Okay. Now I hear these times for soaking from the water conferences in Sweden. There was an Indian doctor, not a medical doctor, but doctor in agriculture. And he demonstrated, he presented some papers on how to increase the yield with magnets. He has done an extensive testing with it, and he used a big neodymium magnet around maybe 10 centimeters in diameter. And then he put a small pile of seeds in the middle of this magnet. And he found out that exactly 4 hours was the optimum. And when he did that, the crops were 30% bigger. And they grow within the first 24 hours. The seed was broken, and this little green thing comes out. I don't know what the name is in English. And he actually is very famous in India because he saved their most important plant from being patented by an American company. They fought it first in USA and then at the European patent. And because he has published some papers, maybe 7-8 years before the American patent, it was dismissed. And he was celebrated by the Prime Minister and was on TV and all, but he's a very humble man and very skilled. He actually demonstrated how the biodynamic agriculture could be driven with better economics than the ordinary so-called green revolution, where the purpose is to rob the farmers of their soil. So just to mention that.
Yes, the gametlets, because the magnets maggraph fields are interacting with the seeds maggraph fields. The seed's just a dried GANs in a sense, and so it does have its own magnetical gravitational fields. So by using the CO2 plasma, it's having the same effect as interacting with the maggraph fields of the seeds. And has done some results where they have taken GM modified seeds, and just by soaking it for certain lengths of time and letting them grow, it's undoing that genetic modification.
Yes, and that is a very, very important property, because Monsanto, and now it's not Monsanto anymore, they changed the name in order to avoid the bad public relation. But if we can modify that, they have no chance of having a monopoly on the seeds. Because I've read that several American farmers has been targeted because seeds from Monsanto fields were drifting onto their fields, and then they got sued that they broke the patent and used the seeds without paying for it. So this property of reversing the gene modification is very, very important in my view. And thank you for all your
Yes, we just have to be a little bit careful. We need to just be a little bit careful, because maybe, you know, a lot of the things are hybridized, which is normal hybridization over time. So, you know, maybe we don't want our lettuce that was 2,000 years ago. So we've got to be a bit careful not to soak them too long.
Okay, so that is a program in itself to do a lot of experiments and testing and finding out how much you have to do in order to get rid of the Monsanto genes and not get rid of the other genes that is very useful and that has been created through hundreds or thousands of years. That's what you're saying.
That's right. Yes, it's the natural modification that's been added along the way. So, you know, whether we want to get rid of a lot of that or not, don't know. But that's the same with some of the wheat experiments that they've done, where, I mean, wheat is essentially a grass that's been changed over time into the wheat it is today. So
yes.
If we just take that wheat and, you know, can we turn it back into the grass again? Do we want to do that?
Maybe for me personally, it would be nice, because I cannot tolerate a lot of wheat, for example, and the health. I at the time I had a very skilled health practitioner. She's unfortunately dead now, but she told me that just within the last 30 years, the wheat has been modified so much that our digestion system cannot handle it. And that is why we have some of the obesity and other problems, health problems from the wheat.
That's a very big factor. And then the other factor is that in Australia here and in the US, and I don't know whether they do it in Europe, but the practice has been for the last few years to spray Roundup on their fields to dry it all instantaneously so that they can harvest it. So the wheat fields are drenched in Roundup before they're harvested.
Yeah, it's a very, very bad practice. And, you know, by doing this, they are adding the active ingredients to the drinking water in homeopathic levels, and that also are very bad for our health.
I can actually...
Yes, we'll slowly change.
Excuse me, I'll just make a comment on this. I'm surrounded by wheat fields, and when they do spray the crops to dry them out with a chemical, I'm not sure whether it's Roundup, but it affects the peppercorn trees that I have growing in the yard, and the green leaves fall off on the ground. And I couldn't understand why they fell off on the ground. Someone said, I had that all the time. When they spray on the crops, the overspray drifts through the air and the peppercorns are very sensitive, and they drop their leaves. Their green leaves all fall off the tree. It almost denuded the tree.
Yeah, that's the effects it's having.
They Roundup there, Ross, drenched in Roundup.
That leads to another question I had written on my list, and that is, can we use CUO as a pesticide for the plants? And do we risk if, for example, we have a farmyard with those little round stones from the beach to have a nice surface there? And the problem is then you've got a lot of weeds growing there in your farmyard, and you have to clean it up from time to time so it looks nice. What happens if we sprinkle with CUO water in the farmyard? Would the fields then extend to the garden so the plants will die there also? Or any experience with that?
Eric, from the experience we've had from a pest control ministry that are using copper as one of the base ingredients, but we're finding by just having the CO2 environment and with the GANS environment, we're having far less pests. We've hardly had any pests. So they just naturally are not around. I think Ross has experienced the same.
We're talking now about insects, though, as pests, not weeds. Weeds, we haven't come to understand how to stop the weeds.
But there was some pictures published on Kes Foundation where you have 3 pictures and different in time. There was a little plant, and they took a tube with CUO in it and a bit of GANS, but mostly GANS water, and they put this little plastic tube around the plant, and it died quite quickly. And that is why to get rid of the weeds.
That's the same as in olden days, I think.
Oh,
well, can you try it for us?
Yeah, we haven't done it yet.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, try it for us, Eric, and see what happens.
Yeah, because I have the problem at my house. We have these tiles, and then it grows between the tiles, and it's irritating to have all these things. But I'm just fearing that the field will extend to the green. What do you call it? You mow the grass. The grass you mow. That would be not so nice if it kills all that also by the fields extending. But if I just use plasma water for it, then it degrades in strength. So probably that could be used. But as I see it now, you have given me a lot of good advice I could bring to the farmer. So I should not monopolize your education. I will say thank you very much for helping. And I just go to listening mode.
No, thank you.
Perhaps you better warn Eric.
Okay.
Excuse me, Jimmy, perhaps you better warn Eric if he starts using plasma fields. I've had this experience where the weeds grow around the plants significantly. I can't see any weeds around your feet, but boy, they don't seem to grow much in other areas, but they certainly grow around the plasma fields. I have to keep them under control, so that's a thing to look out for.
Well, they are helpers.
We have weed mat, Ross. That's why you don't see any weeds.
Weed mats, is that what it is? Oh, that's good. But anyway,
Yes.
I gather up the weeds on their front end loader and cultivate them into the soil again to enhance the soil. So not all is lost.
No, just put them in another spot where they're better used.
That reminds me of some. I think it was in Sweden. There was some inventors when you have the chicken farms and you treat the animals very badly. They have a lot of problems with diseases and weak legs and also these blood mites. And when the workers at the chicken farm go into the chickens, they get all these blood mites on them, and also the blood mites result in 1 to 2 weeks longer growth time for the chickens. So there was a company, a small company, that created a tube that emitted frequencies that the blood mites didn't like, so they fled away from the buildings. It was completely empty when it was running with these frequencies. So I think part of the solution could be if we could identify the type of fields that the specific weeds don't like, then we could get rid of them without having to do a lot of work.
Klaus may be able to do that, actually, as a suggestion. He may have some solution for that particular idea.
Yeah, it certainly worked for the chickens. And they had to pay a monthly fee to have this running in among the chicken. And if they didn't pay, it was internet connected. And if they didn't pay, they just turned it off and then they paid. So they used it for earning money, but they also got something for it, because when it was in the stable, then the chickens grow faster and they saved food for the chickens. So something for something.
Well, we know if any animal is healthy, then you're going to not get any disease. You know, it's as simple as that. So
I had a lady who has sent me, she says she's going to South Africa in Swaziland, and so she's been feeding some of her plants with different, obviously not very healthy chickens, and a few days after they arrived, they started pooping blood. CO2, just the actual GANs, I reckon, because she just doesn't know any different, into the chicken water, and she says they've stopped pooping blood, so they've had a death sentence, so I'll see how they go.
That's excellent.
Did you hear all of that? Because I think the internet was a bit...
You were breaking up a lot, Lisa, but I think I got the message anyway.
Same here.
Would you like us to repeat?
Not necessarily.
I think I got the message, but if others didn't get it, they must.
There are
say.
some other people participating here. Maybe they want to read that repeat.
What a lot of people can experiment with is, particularly with animals, is to try and add the CO2 and even some of the zinc in with the animals' water or their food, and see, you know, if particularly those that are doing sort of heavy agriculture with a lot of animals close together, the results have shown that it does reduce infections by giving them the CO2, and so that you have to use less antibiotics and that. So, you know, people can just play around and try it.
I have also been adding some sea GANs to my chickens' water, or the eggshell strong, I should say, not the eggshells.
Klaus, do you have anything you want to show this week, or did you have time?
Jimmy No had nothing to present this week, but maybe next week I can, next workshop I can present something, what we tried and researched in our garden. But we have early springtime, and the last weeks it was very cold and very wet, and the whole season in Austria starts 2 or 3 weeks later.
Okay. No, that's fine. Perfect. Anybody else with some questions? How's things in Canada there, Alex?
Good morning. It's wet here as well. And the season is, actually, we're just getting some decent temperatures coming up right now. We've been very, very cold, around freezing here, but the temperatures are going up around 20 centigrade, 20 Celsius, yeah. And it should start making a difference.
Great, thank you. Southern Hemisphere. We'll moan about our summers, but the rest of the year is very pleasant. Any other questions? Any comments? Otherwise, we'll call it a day. All right. If there's no more questions, everybody tired can go and have their morning nap or afternoon nap or evening nap. And thanks for attending. Great information shared today. And we look forward to seeing you again on the next workshop on the 28th of May. So thank you very much for participating.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Great
you.
to see everyone here today.
Thank you.